Elias Kane stood at the observation window of the transport shuttle as the new outpost slowly came into view. The structure floated above a vast alien world that shimmered with silver light. Rivers reflected the glow of distant stars, and strange floating islands moved slowly through the sky below. He had served in difficult places before, but nothing felt like this. The air itself seemed heavy with expectation. Every officer sent to the frontier imagined danger, conflict, or glory. Elias expected something similar, but he felt a quiet uncertainty growing inside him as the ship approached docking range. The outpost was called Calaris Station, built as a joint effort between humanity and a powerful alien civilization known only through brief diplomatic reports. Humanity's expansion into deep space had forced many new encounters, some friendly and others tense. The Calaris people were mysterious and deeply traditional, and their society revolved around a single leader called the Queen. According to the files Elias read during the journey, she ruled not only through authority but through understanding. It was said she could sense emotions and intentions. Many human officers dismissed that as myth, but none truly knew. As the shuttle landed, Elias adjusted his uniform and prepared himself. He walked through the docking corridor, greeted by both human personnel and tall alien figures whose movements were smooth and calm. Their eyes reflected light in unusual ways, giving the impression that they were always observing more than they showed. No one spoke loudly. Even the sound of footsteps seemed softened by the design of the station. A human commander met him at the entrance. She looked tired but relieved to see him. Without wasting time, she guided him through a series of corridors toward a briefing room. Elias noticed how the architecture blended human technology with alien design. Curved walls flowed like waves, and faint glowing lines ran through the floor as if the building itself were alive. Inside the briefing room, he received his assignment. At first, he thought he misunderstood. His first duty was not security, diplomacy, or exploration. Instead, he was scheduled to spend a full night in the presence of the alien queen. The room fell silent as he read the official order. The wording was formal, but the meaning was clear. This was a ceremonial meeting required by the queen's traditions. Elias asked for clarification. The commander explained that this ritual had been used for generations. Visitors from other species were invited to spend one night with the queen under controlled conditions. It was not meant to be threatening, but it was deeply important to the alien culture. They believed true understanding required direct presence without distraction. Many had attempted the ritual, and most failed to earn the queen's trust. Humans had never completed the ritual before. Previous attempts ended early because human participants struggled with the emotional intensity or misunderstood the purpose. Now the queen had specifically requested another human, someone with experience but also patience. Elias realized that he had been chosen not only for his skills, but for his reputation as a calm and thoughtful officer. After the briefing, Elias walked through the station alone, trying to process everything. He watched alien technicians working alongside humans, exchanging quiet gestures instead of spoken language. The partnership felt fragile, as if built on hope rather than certainty. He understood that success tonight could strengthen the alliance, while failure might push both sides further apart. Later, he received additional information about the ritual. There would be no weapons, no outside communication, and no interruptions. The queen would guide the night according to her own methods. Some described it as a test, while others called it a conversation. No official records detailed what truly happened inside the chamber. As the hours passed, Elias prepared himself mentally. He reflected on humanity's reputation across the galaxy. Humans were often seen as unpredictable, capable of great kindness and great mistakes. He wondered whether that unpredictability would help or harm him during the ritual. When evening arrived, alien attendants guided him toward the royal chamber. The corridors grew quieter and more elaborate, decorated with symbols that seemed to tell stories without words. Soft light flowed along the walls, changing color as he passed. He felt as if the station itself recognized his presence. At the entrance to the chamber, the attendants stopped and stepped aside. The door opened slowly, revealing a vast room filled with gentle light. The queen stood at the center, surrounded by faint patterns of energy that moved like drifting clouds. Her presence felt powerful yet calm, and Elias sensed that every movement she made carried purpose. He stepped forward and bowed slightly, unsure of the correct greeting but determined to show respect. The queen observed him silently. Her eyes reflected deep intelligence, and for a moment Elias felt as if she could see every thought he carried. Instead of speaking immediately, she walked slowly around him, studying him from different angles. The silence stretched longer than he expected. Elias resisted the urge to fill it with nervous words. Instead, he focused on breathing steadily. He remembered the advice given by the commander: be honest, be patient, and do not try to control the experience. Finally, the queen spoke. Her voice sounded soft yet clear, translated into human language through unseen technology. She welcomed him and explained that the night would not follow a strict structure. She wanted to understand humanity through him, not through reports or statistics. Elias responded simply, introducing himself not as a hero, but as a representative of a species still learning its place among the stars. The queen seemed pleased by his humility. She invited him to walk with her across the chamber. As they moved, the environment changed around them, shifting into scenes from alien history. Elias watched images of their civilization's growth, their challenges, and their search for balance. He realized that this was not a performance but a sharing of identity. As time passed, Elias felt less like a visitor and more like a participant in something deeply meaningful. The queen asked questions that went beyond politics. She wanted to know how humans formed friendships, how they dealt with loss, and why they continued to explore despite constant risks. Elias answered honestly. He spoke about humanity's mistakes as well as its achievements. He described the courage of ordinary people and the way humans often learned through failure. The queen listened carefully, sometimes pausing to observe his emotional reactions. Hours went by without him noticing. The night felt both long and strangely peaceful. Elias realized that the true challenge was not physical strength, but emotional openness. The queen seemed less interested in perfection and more interested in authenticity. At one point, she asked him why humans continued to trust strangers despite past conflicts. Elias thought carefully before answering. He said that humans believed connection was worth the risk because isolation led to stagnation. Growth came from meeting the unknown. The queen's expression softened slightly, as if his words confirmed something she had long suspected. The atmosphere shifted again, becoming quieter and more personal. Elias sensed that he was approaching the deeper purpose of the ritual. As the stars outside moved toward dawn, he felt a growing understanding between them. He no longer saw the queen as a distant ruler, but as someone searching for reassurance that humanity could be a reliable partner. The night continued, filled with conversation and shared silence. Elias remained calm, focusing on honesty rather than trying to impress her. He understood that the outcome would affect more than his own career. It would shape how humanity was seen by an entire civilization. When the first light of morning began to appear beyond the chamber's walls, Elias felt both exhausted and strangely hopeful. The queen stood quietly, watching the changing sky. He wondered what her decision would be, but he also felt proud that he had represented humanity with sincerity. The moment held a sense of possibility, as if the future of two species balanced on a fragile but promising connection formed during one long night. Elias Kane awoke to a faint glow filtering through the tall, curved windows of the queen's chamber. The night had not been as he had imagined. It was not a test of strength or combat skill, but of perception, patience, and understanding. The alien queen did not speak with threats or demands. She communicated through observation, subtle gestures, and questions that cut deeper than words alone. Elias had felt the weight of her attention constantly, as though she could see into the very essence of his thoughts. He had learned quickly that nothing could be hidden in this chamber. The queen stood silently in a corner, her posture straight and commanding. The soft patterns of energy around her swirled slowly, reflecting her awareness and alertness. Elias took a deep breath, realizing that the true challenge of the night was just beginning. The queen's interest was not satisfied by simple answers or polite explanations. She sought to understand how a human could think, feel, and respond in moments of uncertainty. As the first simulation began, the chamber transformed. The walls dissolved into a projection of alien landscapes. Rivers of luminous liquid flowed over jagged cliffs, and forests glowed faintly in silver and blue. Sounds of the world echoed softly, the cries of creatures, the hum of energy, and the rustle of unseen winds. Elias walked carefully across the floor, his senses alert. The queen observed him closely, noting every pause, every reaction, every movement. The simulation was designed to test his patience and adaptability. Strange creatures appeared and disappeared, offering either challenge or guidance. Elias had to decide whether to engage with them, avoid them, or interpret their actions. Some creatures moved quickly and unpredictably, while others seemed harmless but required careful attention. Each choice revealed something about him, his caution, his courage, and his ability to think critically under pressure. Elias noticed that the queen did not give instructions. She simply observed and adjusted the simulation subtly. If he hesitated or acted impulsively, the environment shifted, forcing him to reconsider his actions. The test was not meant to fail him outright, but to measure his thought process. He realized that the queen valued reflection and deliberate action over instinctive reactions. Hours passed, and the simulation grew more complex. He encountered scenarios where he had to make moral choices. One situation presented a group of alien civilians in danger. They were trapped by shifting terrain, and the only escape required Elias to risk his own safety. Without hesitation, he guided them to safety, carefully navigating the treacherous environment. The queen's presence felt heavier during this moment, as if she were weighing the intent behind his actions rather than the result alone. After the first series of challenges, the chamber shifted again. Elias found himself in a room filled with holographic projections of alien history. Wars, alliances, betrayals, and triumphs played out before him. The images were vivid, almost tactile, and Elias could feel the weight of the events as though he were present in them. The queen watched him closely, silently judging how he processed the information. Elias realized the second trial was a test of empathy. He had to understand the motivations and fears of a civilization very different from his own. He asked questions aloud, carefully, and respectfully. He wanted to comprehend their decisions rather than judge them. The queen nodded occasionally, her attention fixed on his words. She seemed to sense his sincerity and measured every expression of understanding against what she knew of her people. As the night progressed, the trials became more personal. Elias faced projections that challenged his moral compass and emotional resilience. One scenario forced him to choose between saving a group of innocents or preserving a valuable piece of alien technology. He hesitated briefly, weighing the consequences, and then chose to save lives, understanding that technology could be recovered but lives could not. The queen's presence never wavered. She did not comment, but Elias felt her judgment with every decision. The pressure was unlike anything he had experienced before. In this chamber, honesty and authenticity mattered more than physical skill or intelligence. He had to reveal his true self, strengths and weaknesses, courage and doubt, to succeed. During a brief pause, Elias took a moment to reflect. The night had revealed much about himself and humanity. Humans were often unpredictable, impulsive, and emotional, yet capable of extraordinary loyalty and sacrifice. These traits, which some civilizations feared, might be precisely what the queen wanted to understand. He thought about the mistakes humanity had made in history, the conflicts, the wars, and the acts of bravery that had defined them. He realized that humans' unpredictability and willingness to act on instinct and conscience might make them valuable allies. The next simulation tested courage. Elias was placed in a scenario where he faced hostile forces that threatened innocent civilians. The challenge was not only to confront danger, but also to make strategic decisions with limited information. He had to act quickly and decisively, relying on observation, intuition, and knowledge of human behavior. He realized that hesitation could cost lives, but reckless action could worsen the situation. Carefully, he chose the path that minimized harm while achieving the objective. The queen's energy patterns shifted in response. Elias felt a subtle acknowledgement of his choices. He understood that she was not merely observing outcomes, but the reasoning behind every decision. His human instincts, tempered by deliberate thought and empathy, were being evaluated. After several more trials, Elias faced a test unlike the previous ones. The chamber transformed into an intimate, quiet space. The ambient light dimmed and the air became still. The Queen invited him to speak openly about humanity, its history, its failures, and its hopes. This was not a test of knowledge, but of honesty. Elias spoke with sincerity, acknowledging humanity's flaws and triumphs. He described the courage of ordinary people, the compassion that guided acts of selflessness, and the resilience that allowed humans to endure adversity. The Queen listened without interruption. Her attention was complete, her presence enveloping him. Elias realized that this part of the ritual required vulnerability. He could not present humans as perfect or idealized. He had to reveal their imperfections, their struggles, and the lessons learned from mistakes. As he spoke, the chamber responded subtly. Patterns of light shifted, reflecting the emotions conveyed in his words. He sensed that the Queen was processing not only the content, but the authenticity behind his speech. Elias understood that trust was being built, not through displays of power or skill, but through honesty and openness. Hours continued to pass. The chamber's simulations grew more complex, intertwining moral dilemmas, empathy exercises, and strategic challenges. Elias faced each with careful attention, balancing instinct and reason. He learned to observe the Queen's subtle cues, adapting his approach as needed. He realized that the Queen valued human adaptability and resilience. Unlike other species that followed rigid rules, humans could act creatively and morally in unpredictable situations. During a pause, Elias reflected on his own journey. He thought about his training, his experiences in past missions, and the lessons learned from both success and failure. He realized that his role tonight was not only to represent himself, but to represent humanity as a whole. Every decision, every reaction, every expression of emotion contributed to the Queen's understanding of humans. The night's challenges also tested patience. Long periods of silence, careful observation, and subtle adjustments to the environment required Elias to remain focused and calm. He understood that impulsive action or frustration would undermine his credibility. Instead, he practiced mindfulness, observing both the chamber and his own reactions. He learned to remain steady even when confronted with the unexpected. The Queen occasionally posed questions indirectly. She asked him to interpret situations, explain choices, and express understanding. Elias responded thoughtfully, drawing on both personal experience and knowledge of human history. He acknowledged complexity, admitted uncertainty, and offered honest insight. The Queen seemed to appreciate this approach, recognizing that humans were neither perfect nor predictable, but capable of moral and rational action under pressure. As dawn approached, Elias felt a deep connection to the ritual's purpose. He understood that this was not a test to be won through conventional measures. It was a trial of character, of empathy, and of honesty. He had to demonstrate the qualities that defined humanity, not only in words but through action and presence. The final hours before sunrise brought the most demanding simulation. Elias faced a scenario combining all previous challenges, moral dilemmas, emotional pressure, strategic decision-making, and empathy exercises. He navigated the scenario with care, drawing on every lesson learned throughout the night. He made choices that reflected human values, courage, compassion, honesty, and adaptability. The Queen observed every decision. Elias felt her attention as both scrutiny and understanding. He realized that the night had revealed much about himself and his species. Humans were flawed, emotional, and unpredictable, yet these traits could serve as strengths in forming alliances, solving problems, and navigating complex moral landscapes. When the first rays of light appeared, signaling the approach of morning, the chamber shifted back to its original form. Elias felt exhaustion but also a profound sense of accomplishment. The Queen remained calm, her expression inscrutable yet attentive. He sensed that she had gathered enough insight to make a judgment about humanity's potential. Elias stood quietly, reflecting on the night. He had faced challenges that tested every aspect of his character. He had learned to balance courage with caution, honesty with diplomacy, and action with reflection. More importantly, he had discovered that the essence of humanity, its unpredictability, empathy, and resilience, could be both a source of strength and a bridge to understanding. As the night ended, he realized that the ritual was far from over in significance. Its purpose extended beyond a single human or a single outpost. It was a key moment in establishing trust, respect, and cooperation between two species. Elias understood that his actions tonight would influence not only his own career, but the future of humanity's relationship with the Kalara civilization. He took a final, steadying breath, preparing himself for the next phase of the ritual. The night had been long and demanding, yet it had taught him more than any mission before. He was ready to face the final moments, knowing that every choice, every gesture, and every word mattered. He felt the weight of responsibility, but also the quiet hope that humanity's true nature had been revealed through his presence and actions. Elias Kane stood quietly as the first pale light of the alien dawn filled the chamber. The night had been a test like no other, a long series of trials that measured patience, empathy, courage, and honesty. But now the ritual had entered its final stage. The alien queen, standing at the center of the chamber, appeared both calm and attentive. Elias knew that the decisions he made in the next hours would determine how humanity was seen by a civilization far older and wiser than his own. The chamber shifted subtly. The air shimmered with soft light that moved like gentle waves. Images of distant stars and alien cities appeared around him, forming a panorama of the Kalara civilization. He realized that this was the Queen's final method of testing him. She wanted to see how he would react to the full scope of her people's achievements, struggles, and potential threats. Elias took a deep breath and stepped forward. He examined the holographic images, noting the complex architecture, the flowing energy lines that connected structures, and the delicate balance of technology and nature. Each projection seemed to represent centuries of careful thought and planning. Humans often built quickly and sometimes carelessly, but the Kalaris had developed systems that harmonized with the natural environment. Elias understood that to gain the Queen's trust, he would need to show respect for this civilization's depth, intelligence, and history. The first challenge in the final stage required him to interpret and respond to these projections. They displayed moments of triumph and moments of failure, wars, negotiations, discoveries, and internal conflicts. Elias observed the events carefully, analyzing causes and consequences. Then he spoke aloud, offering thoughtful insights into how humans might approach similar situations. He did not pretend to know everything. Instead, he emphasized adaptability, learning from mistakes, and valuing life and cooperation above all. The Queen watched silently, her gaze intense. She did not interrupt but allowed Elias to articulate his reasoning fully. The human officer felt the weight of every word. He knew that flattery or false confidence would fail here. The Queen needed honesty, insight, and moral integrity. His own history, his own decisions, and his own understanding of human nature had to be presented authentically. Hours passed as he continued to analyze the holographic scenarios. Each simulation grew more complex, presenting difficult moral dilemmas. In one scenario, he had to choose between saving a small group of civilians or preventing a larger technological disaster that could harm thousands in the future. Elias understood that both choices had consequences, but he carefully chose the path that minimized loss of life while acknowledging the importance of technology. His reasoning was precise, but compassionate, showing the Queen that humans could balance pragmatism with morality. During these challenges, Elias reflected on the many lessons of humanity. Humans had always been unpredictable. They were capable of cruelty, but also of extraordinary kindness. They often made mistakes, yet learned from them. They could act heroically in moments of danger, even when the odds seemed impossible. Elias realized that unpredictability, often seen as a weakness by other species, was humanity's strength. It allowed for creativity, adaptability, and the ability to form bonds in situations that others considered hopeless. The Queen's attention never wavered. She observed how Elias balanced thought and action, courage and caution, knowledge and empathy. She wanted to understand not only the choices he made, but the principles behind those choices. Every pause, every careful step, every word he spoke contributed to her perception of humans. Elias felt both pressure and opportunity, the chance to represent an entire species with integrity. As the simulation progressed, the challenges became more personal. Elias faced visions of potential futures, worlds where humans had failed to cooperate, where greed or fear had caused unnecessary destruction, and where humanity had succeeded through empathy and unity. He navigated each vision carefully, explaining his understanding of why humans made certain choices and how they might act differently in the future. His honesty was crucial. He did not shy away from admitting flaws, yet he highlighted resilience and the capacity for growth. The Queen finally addressed him directly. Her voice, translated clearly into human understanding, asked why humans persisted in exploring the unknown despite the risks. Elias thought carefully before responding. He explained that humans were driven by curiosity, a desire to understand, and the belief that connection with others, including other species, was worth the effort and the risk. He acknowledged that this persistence could lead to mistakes, but emphasized that humans valued learning from those mistakes. The Queen listened intently. She observed the sincerity in his voice, the steadiness in his posture, and the honesty in his words. She had seen many species claim courage, loyalty, and wisdom, but humans demonstrated them not through claims, but through decisions made under pressure, with emotions and morality intertwined. The chamber shifted again, presenting Elias with a final challenge. This time, the simulation combined elements from all previous trials: moral dilemmas, strategic decisions, emotional insight, and empathy tests. He had to act decisively while remaining reflective and compassionate. He faced a scenario where he could protect civilians from a natural disaster, but at the risk of losing vital diplomatic information that could secure peace between species. Elias carefully considered the options, weighing immediate safety against long-term consequences. He acted to save lives, explaining afterward how trust and moral responsibility guided his choice. Throughout the trial, the Queen remained present, her subtle energy shifting in acknowledgement. Elias realized that she was not merely testing his skills or intelligence, but the very essence of his character. Humanity's unpredictability, emotional depth, and willingness to make moral choices even under risk were being measured. Hours blended together, but Elias did not tire mentally. He focused on honesty and integrity. He shared stories of human cooperation, sacrifice, and resilience. He explained how humans formed bonds quickly in crises, how they learned from failure, and how their morality guided decisions even when outcomes were uncertain. He spoke not as a perfect human, but as a representative of a flawed, adaptable, and resilient species. The Queen finally indicated that the trials had concluded. She stepped closer, her presence commanding but not threatening. Elias sensed that the night had achieved its purpose. She now had a full understanding of humanity as reflected through him. She did not speak immediately, allowing silence to fill the chamber. Elias waited, steady and composed, understanding that this final moment was as much a test as any trial before. Then she spoke. Her words were measured and calm, yet carried weight beyond the chamber walls. She acknowledged the flaws and unpredictability of humanity, but emphasized the qualities that distinguished them: courage, empathy, adaptability, and the capacity for moral decision-making under pressure. Elias listened carefully as she explained that humans could be trusted as partners, not because they were perfect, but because they demonstrated resilience, honesty, and loyalty. Elias felt a wave of relief and pride. The night had been long, difficult, and unlike any other mission he had undertaken, but it had also been illuminating. He had learned more about himself, his species, and the possibilities of interstellar cooperation than he could have imagined. The chamber shifted one last time, returning to its original serene form. The Queen stepped back, allowing Elias space to reflect. The morning sun, filtered through alien skies, bathed the room in soft light. Elias understood that the night had not only tested him, but had established a foundation of trust between humans and the Kalara civilization. As he prepared to leave the chamber, the Queen offered a final gesture of acknowledgement. Elias realized that his actions, honesty, and courage had represented humanity well. The alliance they had begun to forge tonight would shape the future, providing protection, collaboration, and shared understanding for generations. Walking back through the halls of the outpost, Elias felt a sense of accomplishment and responsibility. The night had changed him. He understood that humanity's strength lay not in perfection or predictability, but in its resilience, moral courage, and willingness to act with empathy even in uncertainty. He reflected on what the Queen had seen: a species capable of growth, capable of learning from mistakes, and capable of forging bonds with those unlike themselves. The trials had revealed not only the nature of humanity, but also its potential. Elias realized that he had witnessed the beginning of a new chapter in human history, one that would extend beyond the stars and into the hearts of those who had once been strangers. By the time Elias left the royal chamber, the first rays of light had fully illuminated the outpost. The night of tests, trials, and reflection had ended. Humanity had passed not because of strength or cunning alone, but because of qualities deeper and more enduring: honesty, courage, empathy, and the willingness to act morally even in the face of uncertainty. Elias carried these lessons with him, knowing that the alliance he helped establish would stand as a testament to humanity's potential in the galaxy. The alien queen's presence faded from his immediate perception, but the impact of the night remained. Elias knew that the journey ahead, both for him personally and for all of humanity, would require vigilance, wisdom, and continued moral courage. Yet he also felt hope, knowing that humans had proven they could meet the challenges of interstellar diplomacy, complex moral landscapes, and unfamiliar civilizations with integrity and heart. As Elias stepped out into the corridors of the outpost, he was greeted by the rising sun over alien lands. The world below seemed alive with possibility, shimmering with light and potential. He knew that the events of this night would be remembered, studied, and shared for generations. Humanity had taken its first true step toward meaningful interstellar partnership, guided by values that could not be replicated, simulated, or forced. They had succeeded not through power alone, but through understanding, empathy, and courage. For Elias Kane, this was more than a mission completed. It was a lesson in the enduring strength of his species, a confirmation that humanity's unpredictability, emotional depth, and moral compass could become a force for good in the galaxy. He felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, confident that the bridge of trust he had helped build tonight would lead to new horizons and new alliances. The story of the night with the alien queen had concluded, but its significance would resonate far beyond the outpost, shaping the course of human and Kalaris relations, and proving that even among the stars, humanity could shine through as a species capable of wisdom, empathy, and courage